Cooking classes have become a standard part of the Italy itinerary, and with good reason. There's no better way to connect with Italian culture than through its food. But as Italy's popularity has skyrocketed, so has the number of cooking classes on offer. And a lot of them, particularly the ones you find on aggregator sites that sell pizza, pasta, and gelato classes in every city from Venice to Palermo, not all of them are great. And while those dishes are definitely found throughout Italy, they are not necessarily the local specialties. Pizza in Venice, not great. And they definitely don't tell the whole story. Outside of Italy, Italian food was long understood as just pizza and pasta, and really also the food of immigrants from the Italian South. But beginning in the 1980s, food writers and chefs in particular started digging deeper into Italy's regional cuisines. Suddenly, Emilia-Romagna, Tuscany, and Sicily were on the culinary radar, and each as distinct from the other as if they belonged to different nations. And in many ways, they do. So, yes, I wholeheartedly endorse taking a cooking class in Italy, but one that takes you close to the place that you're in. A real cooking class should open the door to stories, to people, history, and really to dishes that you've never tasted before. So, for example, tiramisu, right? Very, very popular in cooking classes. And of course, it's delicious, but it was invented in the 60s, and let's face it, it's an English trifle with Italian flavors, okay? And nobody's no-no was making lady fingers from scratch. So, in this episode, I want to introduce you to two women who offer the kinds of cooking classes that I heartily recommend. Experiences rooted in land, family, and a deep knowledge of regional traditions. First, we'll meet Pamela Sheldon Johns. She's an American who has lived in Tuscany for nearly 25 years. She's written many cookbooks, and she has a deep love for cucina povera, the humble, essential food of rural Italy. Now, Tuscany, where she lives, is very much sold as a luxury product, and I think that branding has taken a toll on its food culture. But Pamela is still in her garden, her olive grove, and in the kitchen, preserving and sharing the real thing. Then we're going to travel south to Puglia, a region that is fast becoming the next Tuscany, especially in the luxury travel category. And there we'll meet Giovanella Russo, who left a long corporate career in Naples to live on an organic farm in Martina Franca. In her cooking classes, she shares the traditional recipes of Puglia, along with the very refined cuisine of the old Neapolitan monarchy. This is to say, these are recipes passed down through her family, who are descendants of Neapolitan royalty. So this episode is about what it means to cook with intention, to learn a place through its ingredients, and how to skip those pizza, pasta, gelato classes for something far more meaningful.
I'm Pamela Sheldon Johns from California originally, living now in Montepulciano at my farm, which is an organic farm just outside of Montepulciano in the countryside a bit. We have a farm, 15 acres more or less, 5 hectares really, 800 olive trees and a small vineyard that I put in. We've been here for 24 years, and we have the little bed and breakfast and my cooking school here. So this is like a little tucked away gem because in this area, as I'm driving around, there's so much luxury tourism. There's lots of weddings in this area, the Val d'Orcia, home to all these famous resorts. But here we have like a true agriturismo where it's a place where people live and farm and grow food. And you keep things pretty simple and pretty, I would say, authentically Tuscan. And we can talk a little bit more about what that means.
I appreciate that. I mean, you saw me this morning with dirt under my fingernails. It's like, yeah, we're doing it. We have help, of course, because it's a little more than the two of us can handle. My husband, Johnny Johns, helps me with everything. It is hard to keep that feeling in today's world. Really is. And what you said about driving around and seeing all these luxury places, yes, we're at the edge of Val d'Orcia, and this whole area is just absolutely stunningly beautiful, and people want to come here and have the stereotypical image of life in Tuscany, which can be a lot of different things. But what I'm seeing, which is just kind of crazy, is this is a farmhouse. And suddenly people are calling these villas, but they're not. It's a farmhouse. It was part of the sharecropping system up until the 60s or so. And it wasn't To me, it could be, I guess I could turn it into a luxury place. Other people with farmhouses like this have that call them villas, and they're all fancy and decked out and charging a lot of money. What I like to do, besides it suits me lifestyle-wise, is to keep the integrity of what was here before. Yes, we have internet. Yes, we have a rototiller. We have the helpers. But on the other hand, it still has an honest feeling to it. And the people who come here are my people. I had a cooking school in Santa Barbara. And all my friends said, oh, you've got to meet this friend of ours, Rolando Beramendi, who is working at a winery in Italy. And he's just an interesting guy. He teaches cooking classes. So I had him come teach for me. And we hit it off. We became friends. He said, well, next time that you are in Italy, in Tuscany, come see me. I'm in a Medici palace. And you can stay with me. So I am coming with my godson this summer as a graduation gift. But I said, we're going to be camping because I'm thinking I can't afford to stay in a Medici villa. He goes, you'd rather camp than stay in a Medici villa? I'm like, I just don't have the budget. He said, you'd be my guest. I'm like, okay. So I got here and he was very generous and we had a lot of things to talk about. He wanted to start doing cooking courses. Nobody else was doing it back then. Very few people. And so I said, this is a great idea. I go, you need a representative in the U.S. And he said, well, why don't you do that? And so we started being partners and started doing that in 92. But underneath all of this for him was his business called Manicaretti, which was importing artisanal foods from Italy to restaurants at the time, restaurants and chefs. And so the idea actually was to start out with bringing those chefs over to see where these original ingredients came from and how they were used in a traditional way. And it was a beautiful idea. We had a lot of famous chefs that you would know their names come over and do our workshops with us and visit the artisans and eat all the different foods and everything. And that way, if they went back and wanted to do something more creative with it, they could, but they knew their roots. And so it was a super cool program. This problem was that chefs never really have time and money. They have one or the other. Yeah. And so it wasn't functioning that well. So we decided to open it up to cooks, and people who were not necessarily in the profession. And that's where it took off.
If you go to most cities, Los Angeles, San Francisco, New York, you'll find restaurants that are Tuscan restaurants, Sicilian restaurants. But still, people come to Italy and they think it's just going to be pizza and pasta. It's amazing how different Italian food is still from region to region, which is one of the most amazing things about the country.
In Tuscany, it's different from area to area because we have the seaside, we have the mountains, the Apennines going down here. We have city cuisine and we have the rolling hills where we are right now. It changes just like the whole of Italy changes regionally because think about it. We're touching Africa on one end and the Alps on the other. Of course, different things are going to grow. There wasn't a lot of communication between people. There's so many kinds of pastas. Even here, this is pici, what we make, PIC, which is just flour and water, a real poor recipe. Over in Montalcino, they call it pinci. And in Umbria, they call it umbricelli. Just a few kilometers away from each other, grew up like this. Maybe somebody tasted it here and brought it back or whatever. I love that. You could just travel up and down the country, like going to different countries almost. I don't want to lose those traditions. I want to hold on to some of those things. Why is the bread there? You know why the bread's there.
The bread is there to serve as an effective mop.
Exactly. And you don't eat it with your pasta.
No.
There's all these wonderful rules that are for some reason. Even if you don't know why it is, it's like almost better to just kind of try to follow those rules. Those are all going by the wayside now.
So was it easier to find just the local cucina povera 25 years ago than it is now?
I think that was almost all there was, right? Every restaurant served the same thing. It was what we made at home also. So people went out for special occasions. And that thing, you remember back then, you felt obligated to get an antipasto, primo, secondo, and dolce because you had the table for the night. And if you just came in and had a bowl of pasta, then they didn't take a reservation for that table after that. So there was part of that kind of, but just also, it was always a special occasion to go out to eat. And you would have a nice big meal and relax in between courses. You don't see it so much anymore. Some restaurants are even starting to do 2 turns.
And so those places maybe that you used to go to a long time ago that did the more simple stuff, are they still around or have they changed to adapt more to a more upscale experience that suits the tourists?
They're dying out, literally.
They're dying out. Wow.
But it's, the older people who had cooked for, 25, 30 years, and they're gone. And nobody's taking that over. What they're taking over is a menu that you can charge a lot more for. And because there's also a misconception about what Tuscan food is. You started with that, and I agree. The word Tuscan is used so loosely.
It's one of the most abused terms. I think of the Tuscan pasta with chicken at a famous chain restaurant, which shall remain nameless.
Which you would never find here in a classic way, in a classic sense. But, also, I've seen Tuscan cat food. And I'm like, what makes this Tuscan, people? And I look at the label, there's olive oil in it. I just think that's nuts.
Or it's like a code word for upscale Italian food.
I don't
think charge more.
I don't think of Tuscan really as being upscale, but there, of course, there's some wonderful chefs doing wonderful food. I enjoy that kind of meal sometimes too, but I really just like the homey food.
Well, and I think that's the interesting thing is that Tuscany has been sold abroad and continues to be as kind of a luxury product. And this is an area, again, with so many fantastic amenities for the luxury traveler. But Tuscan food is as simple as any other region. It may be even more simple than something like Sicilian food, even though Sicily is less financially prosperous.
I don't know. I mean, it's hard to compare them because I see Sicily as this really robust basket of vegetables.
But I think of cassata siciliana, there's all these things in their heritage that goes back to days of royalty and when they were a major port for sugar, whereas Tuscan food is really
okay. But wait, we had that diversion too, the noble families and the peasants.
Okay, so tell me more about that.
Well, just a perfect example is when we talk about this property being sharecropped by peasant farmers, they called them. They were supposed to keep half of what they produced. But it didn't mean that they took a pig, cut it in half, and kept half of it. No, the nobleman got the prosciutto, he got the bacon, he got the loin, he got all the best cuts, and the other half, which we sometimes call the fifth quarter, and the other very tough parts of the animal stayed in the farmhouse. And so you go to the butcher shop today, you will still see those cuts called the noble cuts. And I think there's You probably have been to Dario Cecchini's butcher shop. He's a wonderful guy. He said to his dad, before his dad passed it on to him, why do you sell only these noble cuts? Where's the rest of the animal going? He goes, well, this is what the people want to buy, and so that's what I have for them. That's why he opened up Solo Ciccias, his restaurant, using these products that are the other parts of the animal in his most delicious dishes that the grandmothers made.
Yeah. I mean, even in Florence, a tripe sandwich is the most Florentine thing you can have. I love that in such an elegant city, there's still these food trucks around where you've got, people in business suits lining up to have a tripe sandwich.
It's a booming business, but then it's not for everyone either.
Yeah, it's definitely a unique texture. I love it, actually. Because of the green sauce. And I think that's kind of one of the hallmarks, too, of these poor foods. It's what you do to them, the fact that you have to give them so much love in order to make them taste good.
It's like, why do people eat snails? Because of the garlic
and the butter.
Olive oil. We have this group of kids that come almost every summer from Georgia College. And professor of history. And I put this program together. It's called Learning the culture and history of Italy at the table, in this case Tuscany. And so one of the big dishes that you will be served in anyone's home if you go is the crostini fagottini, which is made with chicken livers.
Love that. It's my favorite.
Oh,
favorite Tuscan dish.
I wish I had made that for you because mine's really good. Anyway, So, we make it and then we have them eat it and they look at it and they go, this looks like cat food. I can't do it. And then he says, tell him, Pamela, tell him. I go, never been hungry enough. You've never been hungry enough. And that's, kind of what's happened to us all. We forget what it's like to be hungry. I love what I do. An Italian friend of mine was here and she was watching me do the classes and then being with the people and everything. And she said, you really get nutrition from this, don't you? And I love that. And what she said is so true. It feeds me. And I love people. And I get to meet so many wonderful people. And I feel really, really lucky. Really lucky. I don't know how I could ever stop doing this.
I had known Pamela for many years through the community of food writers online, but it was only last year that I finally got to stay at her B&B. So if you want to see this corner of Tuscany and visit Pienza, Montepulciano, you want to see that row of cypress trees that's so famous, the one you see in every painting where Gladiator was filmed, stay with Pamela and definitely do a cooking class. Now, Giovanella was someone I met by accident. I was on my way to Puglia for a research trip, and just like the shoemaker whose children have no shoes, I hadn't booked any place to stay. So at the last minute, I went on booking.com and I found a place that would allow me to bring my dog. It was called Masseria Battaglini. And as soon as I met Giovanella, I liked her. She has what I call big baronessa energy, and we immediately hit it off. I was going through something really difficult at that time, and she read me like a book. She talked to me like a mom, and then, of course, she prepared these meals that I will never forget. The first night we had simple dishes of Puglia. There was a fava bean puree, roasted peppers, roasted eggplants, burrata. Then the next morning, fresh baked bread and cornetti, right out of the oven, stuffed with hot cream. Oh my God, I can start crying just thinking about it. And she prepared a seafood feast as well. Giovanella has taught cooking classes at Borgo Ignazia, the super high-end luxury resort in Puglia where Justin Timberlake got married. But of course, it's much more fun to do a class in her farmhouse, and she's happy to fulfill requests and teach you how to make anything you want, including tiramisu. But here's some advice. Don't ask her for tiramisu. Ask her to teach you what's local.
Believe me, I hate tiramisu. I make this every day tiramisu. And through the desserts regarding Puglia, you have desserts that belong to some period of the year. So you have cartellate, which belongs both to Carnival and Christmas time. It is a very thin paste. And then when fried, they are put it with either with honey and cinnamon, or you can have with cotto di fichi.
Mm-hmm.
This is for Carnival time. Then you have Easter taralli, several kinds of taralli coated with sugar. I am born in Naples, but I'm more a citizen of the world than a Neapolitan, because I was an only child and my father has grown me as a man. So I have worked all over the world. My father was an insurance broker, and I have decided to be more a risk manager than an insurance. At the end of 2008, from one day to another, 30 of my best clients went bankrupt, and they paid me no more. And I was just getting mad. And my companion, Giuseppe, my husband, was getting mad and looking at me, dying day by day, because I was very sad. We came here, it was the 3rd of May of 2015. 14, sorry. And I was in the car and he stopped near a fantastic fiori di maggio, lilac. And while I was taking pictures, I saw my companion looking in the very far and saying to me, I want to try to buy property, just like that one you see over there. Giuseppe has made a lot of sacrifice because he knew that it was my way of living in the future. And in fact, I have totally changed my life. We bought the masseria and I get on doing what I was doing and I loved to do. That is to give people smiles. It's so difficult to make a work in which you are able to give smiles as a present by hosting people and by teaching people the simple way of living in the country. But it's important that I meet people from all over the world. And I meet people that are looking for true life. I love, remember a guest last year came from you and they stayed here 10 days. They were fantastic. They were practically living with me. They were doing everything with the dogs and with the cows and with the chickens. And they didn't really want to go out. I loved their kids doing cooking classes with me. They were so happy. And the father on the grass, the mother just looking at the flowers. And they said at the end, thank you very much. I can understand what my ancestors' life was. I tell you, a thing that few people talk about is riso patate cozze, la tiella.
Let me just jump in here for a moment to explain that riso, patate, and cozze are rice, potatoes, and mussels. I'll let Giovanella explain the recipe, but this is one of those dishes that is deeply regional, seasonal, and something people make at home, so no fancy techniques or equipments are required. It's something that's really amazing to learn about and make in a cooking class.
It is one of the most beautiful and healthy food you have. It is the period you have mussels when the moon grows, because mussels are more full when the moon grows. Then after, when the moon goes down, they lose a little bit of weight. So you put rice underneath and you put onions and you put tomatoes and you put, there is somebody who put also zucchini. We don't do. Really, the master of riso patate cozze is my husband, Giuseppe. You put, say, a layer of rice, a little bit of onions, a little bit of tomatoes, mussels, again a layer of rice, up to the end. And then you put a little bit of water of the mussels, and you put on the fire. On top of this, you have cheese, and you have a little bit of pepper. When it is cooked, say, for a while, you put in the oven, and this will have a crust on top. It is fantastic. But for me, it is something that must be done home because they have to be fantastic ingredients. Best rice, best mussels, best tomatoes, and best onions. This is the real secret of the Pugliese kitchen. Why to choose to eat in the houses? Because in the houses you have, quando tu fai la spesa per casa tua, when you make, you go to the supermarket for you. Do you buy the best things or not? It's the same. Why? Instead of going to supermarket, we go into shops. Another thing, last year I have cooked so many times that I don't eat anymore because is polipo e patate, octopus and potatoes. But my octopus and potatoes is different. If you ask your guests that came to me, they will tell you how different it is. I have my secret because I cook the octopus as always in his water. Okay, then I clean the octopus, but I leave the soup of octopus and I cook potatoes in this soup. Then when they are boiled, I peel them and I add to octopus with fresh olive oil. You know that we have organic oil we produce, and a little bit of garlic, a lot of lemon and parsley. Magnificent.
Giuseppe's Pugliese. He's from
Yeah.
Locarno.
Giuseppe is from Locorotondo, yes.
So you probably learned some things from him. And then how did you go about educating yourself on all of this Pugliese food?
The mom of Giuseppe.
There we go.
And Neapolitan cooking, my mother. From Pugliese cooking, from the mom of Giuseppe.
Your family has a noble heritage. And so you have recipes not just of a Neapolitan family, but of a Neapolitan family of noble status.
Okay, my grandmother was the nephew of del Cardinale Russo di Calabria. And she was coming from a noble family. Imagine. So in each Neapolitan family, there was a particular cook. And the cook of a Neapolitan family was a Monsu. And he had a special recipe for ragu. You need it from 10 to 12 hours.
So these are complicated recipes that were prepared by these men.
It's not complicated. It's long.
Okay.
It's long. Takes time. It's complicated in finding the products. A complicated recipe, sure, is a particular pasta, bucatini. Each bucatini is taken by hand. And you have to make a pan just filled with the bucatini, and inside you have sausages, and you have meat, and you have other pasta, and you have mozzarella. This is a very fantastic recipe I have, and I still keep all the recipes of the Monsu, and I have tried to make all the recipes of this Monsu in particular periods.
At this point, our conversation veered off into Italian, but Giovanella told me about the multi-day cooking classes where she teaches the recipes of the Regno delle Due Sicilie, the Kingdom of Naples and Sicily. Because before 1861, southern Italy was a monarchy. It was part of the Bourbon crown with strong links to France and Spain. The Monzu you heard her talk about was like a private chef/butler. He would have been formally trained, but would work exclusively for a family. It comes from the word monsieur. And if you've seen or you've read Il Gattopardo, you know what I'm talking about. Because Giovanella comes from a family with noble heritage, where they had a monzu, this is a cooking class that only she can teach. Now, I really want to get together a group of Italian Americans for a Southern Italian heritage tour with this class as one of the highlights. Because this would be an experience of history that was not just about reflection, but about actually reincarnating it in the kitchen.
Cooking is truly a very important part of the culture of the South. Why I say culture? Because this is history, culture of family.
Also cooking at home, yeah, because the monzu would be in your house, sure.
And keeping the family together.
There are a few other cooking classes that I highly recommend. One is with the Di Pietro family, which you can hear about in episode 8, Irpina's Magic Circle. Or take a class with Mario Stellato in Cilento, where you can learn about the Mediterranean diet in Cilento, the place where it was born. But even better is to make bread with Mario, a chef with very serious credentials, and his grandmother. Or make pasta with his Zia Stefanina in her home. Listen, I hate to be a party pooper. I know people enjoy those TikTok cooking classes where everyone is pouring shots of limoncello at the end. I get it. But I really chafe at anything that feels like a performance of Italy when the real thing is alive and well. If you're a paid subscriber, join me this Thursday, June 12th, for the monthly Ask Me Anything About Italy Zoom meeting. It's happening at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, but if you can't make it, just send me your question and I'll answer it on the call. The replay, I send it out the following day. And on June 19th, I'm launching a new program for subscribers, but the very first one is free for anybody who wants to join us. It's a monthly destination guide where I will do a very deep dive on one region or one itinerary and walk you through everything I think you should do and see there. I'll also send you an itinerary that you can customize for your dates. And when I say deep dive, I mean it. I'm not just going to tell you my favorite spritz spot. This isn't going to be Googleable elsewhere information, okay? We're going to talk history, people, food, wine, and also all of the practical things you need to know. This very first deep dive will be about Cilento. Of course, my home, my heart, my favorite place. To get all the news and the links, make sure that you're signed up for my list. You can join the free one and you'll get this information. Just go to danielleoteri.com. Thanks so much for listening.